I've never heard anyone talk about this, but it's one of the most important things to get signed.
They saw what others missed. While the football world chased the spotlight, they looked underneath it to back pitches, playgrounds and remote academies, to the overlooked and the under-scouted.
And this doesn't just apply for the top 1% of the players in the world. This applies to everyone.
That's where Eyeball Football Technologies stepped in. They're building one of the largest video databases in youth football, with coverage stretching from France to Scandinavia to West Africa, helping the best clubs in the world uncover tomorrow's stars today.
He told me after 15 minutes of watching that game, he was like, this is a good player, but he's nowhere near Premier League level.
And this is how you, or the star boy you know, could get signed. Modern scouting, real access, untapped potential. This is Perspectives, and joining us to share the story of Eyeball are key staff members, Benjamin Balkin and Fernando Mendivil, in their own words.
My biggest mistake was...
My biggest mistake was...
My name is Benjamin Balkin. I'm one of the co-founders of Eyeball.
My name is Fernando Mendivil. I'm the head of product for Eyeball.
This is Perspectives
for Rising Ballers.
All right, guys, first of all, thank you for joining us. Welcome to RB. Ben, we'll start with you as the founder. I know you started out as an academy prospect at Monaco. Talk to us a bit about your journey and, you know, how you were discovered, kind of that early career, I guess.
Sure. So my name is Ben Balkin. I'm Danish of passport, actually, but I was born and raised in the southeast of France. Yeah, football's always been, you know, everything I can remember really from life as a kid. I came up through the ranks at AS Monaco, started playing there. It was my first club really when I was, you know, 5-6 years old, started playing there. And when you're that young, you can just rock up to like a mini trial and they take you in. So that's kind of how I started, and I played there all the way to, yeah, the second year of under-17s. So yeah, I had some great memories. This is everything I ever wanted to do really, you know, play football. In the weekends I was a ball boy at the Stade Louis II, you know, trying to grab shirts of the first team players over there. So that was really my thing. That's my city, that's my club, and my dream as a kid was really to go and play for the first team there. I had a year at the academy. So in France, like the academy system starts at under-16s, so first year under-17s they call it. And then I kind of stopped. I won't blame it on the injury, but that for sure didn't help. He's laughing, but yeah, that was part of the story. But I had a period where I went like 2 years without playing football, without touching a football. And whilst I was injured, there was a youth league game against Benfica. In Benfica, they had a player called Renato Sanchez.
Yeah.
And he was just on another level. And in Monaco, there was a guy called Tristan Muyumba, who was 97, so a year older than me. And he was just toying with him, and just both of them in the midfield like this. And I was number 6 as well. I just remember watching this game. I remember like it was yesterday, and I was like, it's probably good that I'm injured, because I'm never going to be at that level, right? So that was kind of a moment that stuck with me. And when I was 18, I decided to move away from Monaco. I felt like I needed, you know, just to experience something different. And I went to Copenhagen. Decided to move to Copenhagen, kind of my home country, reconnect with my home. I studied over there, and that's where I met the other co-founder of Eyeball, Emil Kjeldsen, who couldn't be here with us today, but who's also an essential part of Eyeball. So we met at university in Copenhagen. During studies, I completely cut with football, cut with everything, didn't play, didn't do anything really related to football, then started to miss it. And I found, I met a few people that introduced me to something that I didn't really know existed before. It's something called scouting. I started to do something that we called scouting consultancy. So I met a guy who was basically, what he was doing, he was helping clubs. He was living in Copenhagen, and he was helping clubs outside of Denmark who had no scouts in Denmark map out the best Danish youngsters really. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was really interesting, and he started explaining me, you know, how clubs were working and how scouting worked and how this player moved over there and why this player didn't, because, you know. And I thought that was really passionate. I told him maybe I could do the same for France. You know, maybe I could do the same for France. I know the system in France. I have quite a good network. I know a lot of players, all of that stuff. And that's how I got introduced to scouting and started scouting. So yeah, that's my story.
How many years were you doing the consultancy stuff?
Oh, a year really. But whilst doing this, I had the idea of eyeball. The whole concept came to me. So yeah, I don't know if you want to get into this right now or later.
Yeah, I'll fire over to Fernando. Similar, but obviously different story. You played semi-pro in Mexico. Talk us through some of that kind of early context for you. And why didn't you take up the invite to join the professional team?
We're just getting started and you want to make me cry already? So it was a long time ago. This was back in 1999. There was no social networks, like the internet was just kind of starting. There was no video, data, anything. It was just pure sweat. So I was a bit late to the sport. I started when I was 8, maybe at school, not in an academy. My parents were not related to the sport at all, so I discovered it by myself and started playing informally. I got in love with it. Turns out that I was pretty good at it. And when I was 14, I received this call from a club called Pachuca. So they were new to the Premier League of Mexico. And when they made me the offer to relocate to Pachuca and join their football academy, I felt I deserved more. I felt I deserved a better club, like, I don't know, Chivas or maybe Cruz Azul America, one of the big clubs in Mexico. But I didn't know that saying no to that will generate a big silence. And I pretty much became invisible after saying no to that opportunity. And then I just saw how 2 of my friends that said yes to the same opportunity, one of them made it all the way up to the national team in Mexico. And I was like, damn it, maybe I should have said yes. But I was also afraid. I was also afraid because I'm not coming from a rich family or anything, but I was fortunate enough to have education, food on the table all the time. And when you live in Latin America, you realize that 99% of the players that make it to professional are under this situation where they either make it or they're condemned to just stay poor, and there's no way to have any social improvement. So they do it for their families, and it's really hard to fight that hunger. It's really hard to fight that hunger when all you want is this desire to become professional. So that's part of the story. I became invisible for like 3 or 4 years. Then I decided to go to college. I did tryouts for the first time in my life, and I became visible again. I was picked among 300 players at the university, and I was one of the starting 11, and it felt good again. Got a scholarship, which is kind of a translation of getting paid for playing. But yeah, that's pretty much how I got started with the sport.
For sure. Do you regret your decision not to take up the offer? Obviously, and do you think, maybe this isn't a question you want to answer, but when you look back at that, do you look at it as kind of a fault of how Mexican football's set up for youth prospects, or is it more of a fault of yourself?
Yeah, like I don't regret it because decisions are decisions, and so many good things have happened to me and during my life, including entrepreneurship. And I've done crazy things like I was on the Shark Tank show in Mexico, and I was able to receive investment in other companies from my biggest idols like Rafa Marquez and Miguel Layún, like big names. So it's been fun, but I can't deny that I always ask, what if? The problem wasn't my decision. The problem was visibility. I only had one opportunity, and I think that nowadays that's not necessarily the case, especially not thanks to eyeball. Now you can have maybe more than one shot. I could have been scouted by a college in the United States, for example, an MLS club, or even other clubs in the region. But I didn't receive that call anymore, so no one was watching. that's a problem.
For sure. Before we get on to kind of eyeball then, I'm just wondering, so a lot of our viewers are probably aspiring football players, or they wish they were aspiring football players. And I think like a story that's as old as time is football players who maybe don't make it as far as they feel they could have or should have. What were some like mental challenges that each of you faced back then? Because it can be quite a lonely road, I think, sometimes, especially like when you get released by clubs and things of that nature. Just, is there anything that kind of comes to mind from that?
Yeah,
point in your life?
for sure. Don't know where to start really. There's, you know, you're in a dressing room with 20 other boys that have the exact same goal as you, and we all know deep inside that maybe none of us are going to get through, or maybe it's going to be one, and we kind of have an idea who it's going to be, but no one really says it. And when you get a setback like you know, a big injury, or you get released and so on, it's, you know, no one can make you feel good, right? Like it's you against you. And I think one thing that I wish I knew when that moment happened to me, and I kind of understood that this was it, like the dream I had since I was 5 years old was not going to happen. It was, if you don't become a professional footballer, there's a million other things you could do to work within football. And I had no idea. I was clueless. I had no idea. No one ever told me. I had no idea. I thought if you want to, like, football player, that's it. You have to play. But there are 5,000 professional football players in the world. 5,000. That's it. That's it. Those are guys that are just full-time professional football players. That's it. No more. So if you are the 5,002, you know, best player, you won't be a professional. Maybe you might be semi-pro, you might, but you're not going to have a good life. But no one told me you could be an entrepreneur within football. No one told me you could be a sporting director. No one told me you could be a scout. I didn't even know it existed. And I'm sure 99% of, you know, players under the age of 15 don't even know what a scout really is. Like, you probably heard of them. You think that you see them with their big jackets on the sideline of the pitches, but you don't really know what it is, what it means. You know, how much weight do they have in clubs and all of this. You could be a physio, you could be anything. There's thousands of jobs, right? And this would probably be my messages. And sometimes, whether you want to accept it and admit it or not, you'll have a better career and you'll be more successful if you're not a player, because you're probably not going to be good enough. And that's just the harsh reality. And this realization came to me quite late with maturity, and you start watching, you know, training sessions of really, really good teams, and you watch those players, you're like you have no idea how good you need to be to play just, you know, second division of a top 5 country in Europe. Like, you have no idea how good you need to be. And the players that you see on TV, you're like, I don't think he's that good. Mate, I promise you. I'm telling you he is.
Sure.
Yeah, so this would be my kind of thing that I wish someone told me when I was like 15, you know?
Yeah, those top level players make it look so easy, right? So that's kind of the illusion that it must be.
It's insane. You take it for granted on TV, but go and like invest in an expensive ticket and go and sit like 5th row in a Premier League ground. Just pay whatever it costs, just pay it. And go and just watch how those boys control the ball, how they, you know, pick up, how they scan, how fast they pass the ball, how fast they are, how strong they are. And then you'll just go back and try again and understand how bad you are. Yeah. That's the truth. That's the truth that no one wants to hear, but that's how I feel.
For sure. Anything you want to add, Fernando?
Yeah, so competition is fierce. And if you think about it, as a person, you're going through all of this when you're still a kid. You're 14, you're 15, you're 16, right? I'm 41 and I still, you know, struggle with a lot of things when it comes to mental strength and making decisions and trying to survive in the business environment. So picture you as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old trying to survive to this, right? Trying to survive to a bad weekend, to a bad game, to comparing yourself to others all the time, knowing that they're chasing the same spot that you're chasing, as just, you know, Ben just mentioned. So sometimes it feels like it's just about the talent, but it's not just that. it's a lot of things. Parents play a big role here. Coaches, which is also one of the things that you can do to stay around the sport. They play a big role here. Your friends play a big role. I remember how as soon as my friends, who were supposed to be my friends, found out that I rejected that opportunity, they started inviting me to have beer for the first time. It was like, this is not the thing. So there's a lot of pressure outside. But I think the message here is, it's going to be okay. Even if you don't make it, it's going to be okay. There's going to be so much to do in your life. So learn from the process. Learn and get strong out of the process, even if you don't make it, because you're going to need that for whatever comes next, whether it's football or not. You just need to go through it. So it's a trend now. It's been a trend for years now. The mental health, the health issues and all that stuff. But it's been always there, and you need to get surrounded by the right people if you want to go to war and have a chance to succeed.
Well, kind of on that note then, eyeball, I guess. You've alluded to it a little bit, but what was kind of the inciting moment for that light bulb moment, I guess, of coming up with this idea? And then also, crucially, what is it?
What is it? It's a video and data scouting platform for the elite, really, like the highest level of youth football in the world. That's what it is in one sentence. It started in 2019, I would say, when I was doing this scouting consultancy. I remember having a conversation with a scout. He was a French scout for Southampton. So like his job was to bring, this was before Brexit. His job was to bring 1 or 2 top prospects from France directly to sign professional at 16 at Southampton, right? He was the guy that brought Jan Valery to Southampton, for example. That was like his thing. So he lived in Paris. He would constantly be, going out, watching games live. He'd be very well connected to a lot of agents. A lot of people wanted to know this guy because they could recommend him players for Southampton. And I remember him telling me, next weekend I'm going to the southwest of France because I'm going to watch a defender. I was like, okay, who is he? Like, yeah, it's this player, there's this agent I know recommended me the player. He called me, he said, I have this defender, it's 2005, so this was 2019, so you can calculate the age around 16 years of age. He's 15 years of age. 2005, tall, like really, really good prospect, could really be something we're looking for. It was a tip from my friend, this agent, so I'm going to go and watch him. I was like, oh, okay, so he invested in a plane to go there, because France is a big country. Plane to go there, hotel night, woke up, breakfast, went to the game, and he told me after that, after 15 minutes of watching that game, he was like, this is a good player, but he's nowhere near Premier League level. Like, he'll sign for a second division club in France, a Ligue 2 club in France easily, but he's nowhere near being good enough for us. And he left at halftime. And that was a moment where I thought, there's nothing wrong with him getting a recommendation from an agent about a player, a tip, we call it in scouting. That's fine, that's perfect. That's never going to go away, and it shouldn't, because a lot of great stories have happened from tips. But the first thing he would have done if that player was not 15 years old, but if that player was 22 and professional player, he would have opened his computer, he would have turned on the TV, and he would have watched the full game from his home. And then he would have decided, is that player good enough? Yes, okay, I'm going to go and see live and, check if this is a good enough player. I'm going to see how he warms up. I'm just going to check out the rest that I couldn't see on TV, that's how it works in professional football. That's how scouting works. But because this kid, there was no video on him, the only way to watch him was to go and travel down there. And this was within France, but this happened all the time, going from France to Africa to South America, from Europe to South America, all of those English scouts traveling to Brazil to go and find, Brazilian players and all of that stuff. So I was like, this is as inefficient as it can be. It's very costly for the clubs, and this just like you can't be everywhere. You are missing out. So because this weekend he watched no other games, right? And then youth football, everything is played Saturday and Sunday. So from Monday to Friday, he's kind of like waiting and writing his reports from the previous weekend and the bad player that he saw, and waiting for the next weekend to go and see the next player that someone recommended him. That was so inefficient. And that was a moment where I thought, you know, we need to find a way so that this player is on a platform where you could just watch loads of video on him. And I asked myself the question, why are those games not filmed? And you keep going to and you have it in England as well, right? You like those private academies, those, you know, just academy football in general. There's always scouts everywhere. And you keep thinking like, why are those guys here? Why are they not, you know, what are they looking for? And yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm looking for a defender. And I go to this one game and I hope that there's going to be a good defender. So we analyzed the problem a little bit, and I thought, what's the reason for this club? Why are they not filming their games? And the answer was that the clubs that are usually developing players are not necessarily the ones with the most money, right? You hear all these stories, and I heard all these stories when I was doing this in the Paris region, you know, those amateur clubs, those clubs where, like there's a club called Sarcelles where Riyad Mahrez comes from. Like this club is probably the best club in Paris in terms of they play at the absolute highest level from under 12 to under 19. It's insane. They send between 15 and 20 players straight from amateur football to academies every single year. Their games are not being filmed. There's something wrong with it. But for them, investing 3,000 euros in a camera is a huge investment. Their budget for the whole year is 40,000 euros. For traveling, for paying coaches, for paying kits, you know. So they can't. So we thought, okay, if we can remove this financial barrier and give them the camera, then they'll film. So this is what we did. So we decided to kind of sponsor the cameras for the clubs. So we mapped out, it started with France, but now we're in 35 countries across 3 continents, including England. But it started with France. We mapped out like the best, I call them talent factories. Where are the talent factories? Where does Kylian Mbappe come from? Where does Colomani come from? Where does William Saliba come from? Where do they come from? Okay, boom, we're going to put cameras there.
Where does Fernando?
Where does the next Fernando come from? Not from Paris.
Not from Paris,
unfortunately. And we decided to give them cameras, and the deal is they film, right? They record everything. They have access to it themselves, so they'll use it as a like analysis tool, training tool. So for the first time ever, those kids can record themselves. Keep in mind that I played in Monaco for more than 12 years of my life. I have never seen myself play football.
Wow.
Because we just didn't film our games. It was not a thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen myself play football. Maybe that's a good thing, actually. I don't know. And then all of those games came up on a platform, and then professional clubs, scouting departments can buy access to that platform to access the database, right? So on top of the recording of the game, we gathered everything from, you know, date of birth on players, height, weight, is he right-footed, left-footed, what's his position? You know, we did like a whole profile of the player. We got the team sheets, which sounds super simple, but it's the most difficult thing to get usually in youth football, is a proper team sheet that matches the actual shirt numbers on a game. And, you know, that's how, you know, crazy it used to be. And we put that on the platform, and we just exploded by doing this. And there was a real need in the market for this. I remember working with 2 guys at Huddersfield, the academy manager and the head of academy recruitment. And they had identified that they're in a region in Huddersfield, in Yorkshire, where they are competing directly with Man City, Man United, Leeds, Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday. So they were always in a situation where they were getting, if they wanted a player in a certain position, they were always getting like the 5th, 6th best player of the region. And there's not endless talent in that area of England, right? So they thought, okay, we need to go and find players in a region where there's an overload of talent and not enough football clubs. And they had identified Paris as that source of talent. Because in Paris, you have PSG and you have Paris FC. Paris FC just promoted to Ligue 1 now, but I can tell you 5 years ago, they were in 3rd division or like bottom of 2nd division. Not a great project. But you have 12 million people who live in Paris, and it's like a football mad region. And I was working with them, and the only way for them to like map out players in Paris was to fly. They had to drive from Huddersfield to Manchester, fly Manchester to Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. I picked them up in the car, and we would drive around on a Saturday afternoon watching 20 minutes of this game where I knew there was a good winger, 50 minutes of that game where I knew there was a good left-footed centre-half, 20 minutes of the other game, and they would write on their phones, yellow team, I like number 3, 7, 10. Blue team, number 5. Red team of the next game, number 9. And at the end of the weekend, they would send me that list, and I had to go and figure out who number 9 from the red team was, calling coaches. Like, that's how we would find information on players. And then we realized, oh, that player doesn't have a French passport, so he can't transfer at 16, so he's useless for you. Just wasted a whole weekend. That's how it used to work. So we just thought, okay, we need to digitalize all this, and not only for the club, but just also for players to get more opportunities, man, because that's also what it was about. So
For sure.
that's what Eyeball is.
I guess like it's probably the same for all the best ideas. It's something that seems so obvious in a way that it's amazing nobody was doing it. So I think like what you've kind of filled in that gap is really important. Fernando, did you want to explain kind of the elite and discover aspects of the platform?
Yeah, maybe before we go there, I'd like to share, when I was invited to join Eyeball as a head of product, and when they explained it all to me, I couldn't help to think that Eyeball was the missing layer between a talent player and their future, because it connects everything. And then this is not just about elite. And because if you say the word elite, it seems like a super high thing, right? But elite is relative. What's elite for Ben or for me, it's definitely something different from a player in India that is trying to make it for a certain, very specific team. Elite could be just making the local league, and that's good enough for you. And if you look at the story that Ben just shared with us, of course we started with the top 1% because it's not so obvious, but it's kind of easy to understand it and to add value. But this was always meant to be for the other 99% too. So we like to say talent is everywhere, right? And visibility means opportunity. And this doesn't just apply for the top 1% of the players in the world. This applies to everyone that wants to become visible and get something, and get something better in their football career, whatever that means. So when you are creating a business, you need to make sure that you find something valuable as soon as you can, because then you can grow on top of it, right? You need to find stability in terms of financials and a business so that you can dare to go for more. And I know we all hear these crazy stories about startups where, they magically found the idea, and then 3 months after they were everywhere in the world and they were servicing everyone and it was magical. That's very good for a Netflix show maybe, right? Or for a short movie. But the reality is not like that. The reality is that you usually have an idea, you identify a problem, you try to solve it, you failed, and then you try to solve it again, and then you fail, and then at some point you get it. What happens next is what takes a company from a good company to an amazing company. And for Eyeball, that's the other 99%. So there's a difference between what's coming next and what we have built over, the past 5 years. And now it's about democratizing access to video, data, and way many other things that I'll share with you for everyone around the world. One country at a time, one category at a time, one person at a time. So yes, it's about optimizing the way scouting works, because there's still a lot to do there. I'm just waiting and looking forward for Eyeball to get to Mexico, because I want to see my fellow Mexican friends, getting discovered and getting more and more players in the best leagues in Europe. But at the same time, I'm so looking forward to get that little guy in a small town that is looking for a new opportunity that might mean just a, a basic elementary school scholarship if they get good, or high school scholarship. It's just survival, right? So that's what Discovery is for. So yes, it's about talent. Yes, it's about visibility, but it's also about progression. If you want to get to the next step, you need to get better. How do you get better? How do you get seen? That's what Eyeball Discovery is about.
That made a lot of sense. I think, yeah, it's going to change a lot of people's lives and careers, hopefully. With that in mind, who is currently using the platform in terms of clubs, leagues, etc.?
So there's the thing with Eyeball is it's a lot of people have called it a win-win-win. So kind of everybody benefits, everyone in the ecosystem benefits from using this platform. So we of course have the professional clubs. Who's that? That's anyone from analysts, scouts, academy directors, technical directors, sporting directors, people that are in clubs who have the opportunity to find players and recruit those players. The thing we must never forget is that those clubs have something that every single player wants, is they have minutes that they can give to football players in a football club. And that's one thing that they have that no one else has. So those guys are using the platform. They're browsing Eyeball. They're using, watching hundreds of games every week on the system, trying to find their next player. Then we have what we call the partner clubs. So the partner clubs are the clubs that I was telling you about previously that have a camera, that are displaying their players on Eyeball, right? So those are the thousands of youth clubs that we have partnered with throughout the world. So we have more than 5,000 partner clubs now across Europe, Africa, and South America also, which is something. It's the most exciting project we are working on right now, South America. And then we have players, right? The players are also impacted. The players can also watch their games back. We have more than 250,000 players on the platform now. So the players are also impacted. And of course, their closest friends and family who can finally watch the games of their friend or of their sons back. So those are the three categories of people that are using Eyeball at the minute.
Wicked. I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of like scouts flying to different parts of the country, watching one game, having to go home. I guess in like a broader sense, for people that don't know, how does like scouting and signing for a club work? Because I think like it's probably different for every club, and it's a question you can't necessarily answer easily. But like, you have directors of football, you have managers who sign players, you've got chief scouts. Just kind of, is there like a broad picture you can paint on that process?
I can tell you how usually most clubs are structured, more or less, which will be they'll have a sporting director for the first team, and then they'll have a recruitment and scouting team for that first team. So that usually be, as you said, a chief scout or head of scouting. And under that, you'll have anywhere from 1 to sometimes hundreds of scouts that are either responsible for certain age groups or certain age groups within certain regions. So you could be like a French scout responsible for France from under 15s to under 19s, right? Or you could be it could be anything really. And then you'll have more or less the same setup in the academy, where you'll have an academy director, you'll have a head of academy recruitment, and the same under him you'll have scouts and analysts. There's some clubs have something in the middle which they call an emerging talent department, with a head of emerging talent and emerging talent scouts. Emerging talent is like the 16 to 19 bracket usually, and academy will probably be younger than that. Again, depending on the club. Clubs will usually work with something that we call shadow teams. What is a shadow team? You'll have like your 11, as you can imagine it, with like let's say a 4-3-3, and for each position, clubs will have their top 3 or top 10 players that are their preferred players for this position. It will be players that are not in the club currently. So you who are watching this, you might be on a shadow team of a club without even knowing it. That's how they work. So they'll have, 7 left backs, number 1 being their top priority, the one that they want to recruit. And if they can't recruit that one because he's going to another club, or he's too expensive, or he gets injured, or, you know, might be a lot of different reasons, then he goes out, and then the second comes to first pick, and then they'll try to recruit that player. So usually a lot of clubs work with shadow teams per country and per age group. So you'll have a 2008 year of birth age shadow team, 2008 shadow team, 2009 shadow team. You know, that's how it works, and it's the same on first team across the globe. And then the dynamic is that the scout is missioned with the identification of players. Then he has to write what we call a scouting report. So it's usually a one-pager of, I think this player is really good at this. I think he's less good at that. And there'll be an overall rating. Each club has different rating systems. And that report goes into an internal database with a lot of reports on thousands and thousands of players. It's crazy to see, actually. And from that, the chief scout will pick out certain players, certain reports, and will then promote those players to a sporting director, who then is eventually the one who has to make the decision on the sporting side of which player do we want to move forward with or not. And from that, once he has that list, then he goes to someone higher up, could be a chief financial officer, could be a CEO, could be a chairman, could be an owner, sometimes directly, or general director. The naming depends on the country. And then financially, they will decide, can they afford this player? What do we offer him, etc. And this is where negotiation will start with agents and so on. So that's usually kind of how it works. And I had no idea that this was the case until I was probably 21 years old.
Wow, yeah.
And I know a lot of players that are young players that are playing regular first team minutes right now that still have no idea that this is how it works. And for me, this is insane. And I think players, it's really, really important to understand how this industry works behind the scenes, behind the football pitch. Because if you understand how clubs scout, how they recruit, what they look at when they recruit, then you can adapt your life, your playing style. There's certain things that you want to do on purpose or want to avoid on purpose as well, because you know this might cost you certain things, right? So that is how it works.
What can you tell for the players that are watching? At least this was the case when I was young. I thought that scouting was based on this one performance, one time when they see me. But you know, it's not like that. It's about the story. It's about how you progress. Can you share something with them, and how Eyeball is very relevant for that piece?
It was the case when you were younger and when I was younger, because you would usually only have the opportunity to see a player once, because it was only live scouting. So when you see that player, whether he has a really good performance or a really bad one, that's the one you'll stick with, and that's the report you'll write, and that's what's going to be remembered in the system internally. But this is changing now with Eyeball and with video scouting in general, because you'll see that really top performance, and then you can go home and watch 5 more games in one day and go, well, actually, this was not his normal level. Or the other way around, poor performance, but you see some things, be like, he was not on it today. You go home, you watch 5 other games from months ago, and you're like, okay, he's actually much better than I thought. Sure. So this is how it has evolved, and this is why today, as a young football player, you can't really rely on scouts being at the right place at the right time anymore when you've had that top game. You have to be super consistent, because scouts will never evaluate you anymore on just that one performance. They will evaluate you over a season or seasons even. I've seen scouts go back 2 seasons to watch, a game of a player that they were trying to recruit now, to see how has he evolved. Was he better 2 years ago, and has he gone like this, which means he might keep going like this, or has he become a better player, which means that it's hopeful for us that he will continue improving. This has changed the game, really. So players must be extremely consistent in their performance, because they have to know they're being watched at all times.
100%.
Yeah, like if you're a player, in other words, you are in control now. If you dedicate yourself to improve, every day, every week. And I always remember the Kobe Bryant thing, saying that just get 1% better each day and so on. if you focus on progression, you're gonna have a shot now. It's not about a lucky shot. It's about just being consistent, understanding. It's not just about training hard. It's about knowing what to train now, because that's how you get better.
Definitely.
So in terms of professional clubs also who are using the platform, I think it's worth mentioning that most clubs in the top 5, 7 leagues in Europe are now using this. So there's only 2 clubs in the Premier League that are still not using eyeball. You've got only like the same 2 clubs in France that are the France Ligue 1 that are not using it. So most have really adopted and put it at the core and the center of their strategy. And that includes, I mean, we can't really name names of clubs because of confidentiality and stuff. They're not really too happy with us dropping their names and logos everywhere, but the bigger clubs in the world are using it. I think in this season's Champions League, we had 80% of clubs that were actively using eyeball in their emerging talent scouting strategy as a tool that they use on a daily, weekly basis. So it's been really implemented. You wouldn't know about it if you're not working in a football club. It's very niche, but it's implemented really, really at the core of professional clubs, because the challenge of finding the next top young player in a football club has never been more important than it is today, right?
100%. Jumping back forward then, we kind of spoke about the process of scouting and signing. Apart from, like, I guess, ability and injury, what are some issues young players maybe face that people don't know about, like behind the scenes stuff, maybe political stuff in the game? Is there anything you can touch on in that regard?
You're right. It's not all about your ability. And sometimes as a player, you might do everything correct, but the right club is just not there for you because they might already have in-house a player that they've already invested in. And they, for political reasons, you can call it, they don't want to push competition to that certain player because he signed a big contract or the agent is really influent inside the club, you know? Those might be things that kind of remove an opportunity for a player. There's also something that I've never heard anyone talk about, but it's the importance of language for a player. So you've got a lot of clubs, like international clubs in England, but also in Belgium, in Scandinavia, in the Netherlands. If they look at a player who plays in a country, it might be Mexico, Spain, France, that does not speak English, that might rule this player out, because they'll be scared that he doesn't adapt well. And he comes to training and training is in English and he just doesn't get it, right? He doesn't understand. He cannot speak to the coach cannot transmit things to him. He cannot speak to the physio, he cannot speak to the doc, he can't, you know? That's the thing I never heard anyone speak about. And for me, I hear it all the time when we have meetings and, you know, clubs are asking about certain players and clubs are asking us, like, can you put on the platform what languages the boys speak? Because we want to be able to filter Spanish-speaking players or English-speaking players. And if they don't speak that language, they're out. I never heard anyone speak about this, but it's really, really, really something that's being discussed in clubs a lot. So if I could give one piece of advice is learn, you know, try to have 1 or 2 languages, learn English. If you're not an English speaker, if you can speak English, it'll be massive for you. And it might make the difference. If clubs are hesitating between 2 players and one speaks English and the other one doesn't, they might pick this one. That's really how it works.
Yeah, it's not just about your ability, it's about where you fit. And that has a lot of things surrounding it. In the same way, it already evolved, like scouting already evolved from this one shot, one game to, you know, a series of performances that can be evaluated. Still, that's mostly video footage and metrics. But there's also a lot more about a player. There's a lot more about you and how you think and how you, whether you're a leader or not, the English skills or any other language, your education, your resilience, whether you're gonna support. So that's the next evolution. So IBOL will include your personal story when it comes to scouting. So scouts are gonna be able to know way more before making a decision. Not just based on video and metrics, which is amazing already, but about the person, about how they behave, about how they think, about how smart you are, and what type of, in what you're smart, and where there are opportunities, what you can improve. So it's going to continue to evolve, and it's not just about how you kick the ball or how you move without the ball. It's about a lot of other things that we're going to bring together in the same platform with Discover.
Yeah, you spoke earlier about kind of the 1% of talent. I guess this is like the 1% in people that will make a difference. Do you know what I mean?
I've seen players being ruled out because of attitude, I've seen a stand at a youth international game in a big under 18s tournament full of scouts from every country in the world, and I knew everyone was coming to watch this one boy, and he's on the ball. He was unbelievable. Never seen anything like it. A winger. When he was substituted, like this to the coach and kicking the water bottle and spitting and not just sitting alone on the bench, few meters apart from the other guys, and at the end of the game just not shaking hands, straight into the locker room. Everyone in the end, where all the scouts were having a chat, it's like, he's out. We can't deal with personalities like this. So even if you are frustrated, keep your head up, be respectful, because those things, this is why clubs also go live after they've validated the player on video. They go live, or they invite them on trial to just see you as a person and try and speak with you. Because usually how it works nowadays is there'll be different filters. So it's like a funnel like this, where it starts with identification of players with data. So clubs will be looking for players that are strong in aerial duels, passes forward, 1v1s, breaking the lines, whatever it might be, and that have a certain profile, left-footed, bigger than X height, etc., etc. Then they'll get a list of, let's say, 30 players. This list will go to scouts and analysts, and they will all watch those 30 players, and then they'll boil down the list to 3 players. And then someone will go out and watch those 3 players live, and then you go into recruitment process. So you can be eliminated at either step, really. So a lot of players get eliminated at the first one, some get eliminated with the video, and some, believe it or not, get eliminated in the live scouting process. And then there'll be a last one who's eliminated in the recruitment because the agent is crazy and wants too much of a commission, or is difficult to speak to, and so on. And then you're the one. So yeah. And I've been speaking to a player about this recently. Someone that I know who had no idea about this data aspect. He had no idea that, I know a metric that a lot of clubs filter to find modern midfielders is passes forward, passes that break the line, And he was playing too many easy passes, he was playing back. And I thought, if he knew that this was how it worked, he would turn around and play it forward, because he might as well have done that. There was space in that game. So understanding also this aspect is important, but no one knows this. No one knows this. Just winning that aerial duel, just try and jump just a little higher and win that duel. It can change everything for you. You might be sorted right there on those small things. And in modern football, clubs are looking more and more, because of data scouting, clubs are looking more and more for profiles, more than for good players. When you ask a club, what are you looking for this summer? They won't tell you we're looking for good players. It's very, very rare. People will tell you we're looking for this position and he needs to be good in the air, fast, boom, 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 boom. Very robotic. And for each position, they'll define their own profiles. So for our left center backs, he needs to be good on those data points. And then they go and find the players. And I remember speaking with my friend Christian Kjær, who's the technical director at FC Midtjylland in Denmark, one of the best clubs in Denmark. And he was saying that if you take 10 attributes where a player needs to be strong in, he would rather have one player who's 10 out of 10 in 3 attributes than 7 out of 10 in all the 10 attributes. Pick something and be really good at it. Choose 3 things, identify yourself, what you're good at and what you want to be good at. Is that turning with the ball and driving? Good. Become the best at that. Is that heading the ball? Good. Is it speed? Good. Pick something and just become the absolute best you can be at them.
Do you think that's a reflection of the modern game in a sense. Like a lot of teams now have become really system oriented, like at the top levels. So you need these like round pegs to fit in round holes rather than just players that are good, like you said. Do you think that's a reflection of the game changing itself?
I think so. Yeah, and there's another challenge. You ask about that, and it's very related to this. And Ben is actually saying like identify 3 things and get better at them. That's a challenge, you know, just understanding and being self-aware about what's going on with you. That's where the coaches jump in. So as a head of product, you know, part of my job is to talk a lot to coaches, to to club directors, and trying to really understand a lot of things that are not quite obvious from the very beginning. And there was this one time that I asked a coach for an explanation of how they develop a player. And he told me something that I never forget. Like, elite is not where the player is at. Elite is where the player can be at. And how do we take them there? And in order to take a player to a better place or to a better level, whatever it is, because remember, it's relative, you need to understand things. You need the video, you need the data, you need this and that, but you also need other communication tools that allow you to develop the player and kind of not just get limited by the time you have with the player, because that's how, as a coach, you can teach them something. But if you have 23 teams or you're coaching 3 teams, and you know that's 69 players already, and then how do you spend time with all of them so that you can individually develop the player? That, you know, that's a challenge, right? Because otherwise you're by yourself. So you're by yourself trying to identify what you can improve, what you should just, you know, you're fine, what others are looking for. That's why you need your coach. They're a key piece of all this ecosystem, because youth football, scouting is a big part of it, but it's a whole ecosystem. Like you shouldn't be building your story when you think that you want to go pro and you're already 15 or 14. Your story should start, and this means video and data, when you're 10, because that's how you can show progression. That's what's going to become interesting. That's how you get to do better. Like, if you're not, the way to say it, like, what is not measured can't be improved, and that's a reality. But if we give players the metrics that we're currently providing to an analyst, I mean, players might need a PhD to understand those metrics. And I don't have a PhD. Like, those metrics might be even confusing to me. So how do we make it easy for the players? How do we make it digestible for them, actionable? How do you know what to train by yourself? How do you know what to train when you stay 15 minutes longer at the training session or something? So we're translating that so that everyone understands it. As a parent, I'm a parent. My daughter plays football now. I'm in the dark. I promised myself that if ever I had a kid that played football, I wasn't going to be that parent that it's kind of a psycho in the sideline, just, you know, yelling things and trying to coach my daughter or my kids. And I remember the first time, oh my God, like the first game. First of all, I have 3 daughters. So when I had 3 girls, because of the culture, I always thought, like, okay, my football story is done. Like, the moment I retire, there's not going to be any more football around my life, because girls were not playing that much. Anyways, when she told me, Daddy, I want to play football, it was probably one of the best days of my life. I was like, yes. And then I went to the first game, right? She started training, whatever. And she was playing with boys because there was no other team. And something happened, a simple thing, a throw-in. She grabs the ball, right? And of course, I was just watching. It's like, she's gonna just do the throw-in. She launched the ball up, and then she hit it with the head. That was supposed to be a throw-in. She was training for 3 weeks, and of course, you know, it was funny at the beginning, but then it was frustrating. But it's like, what is she learning then? And that's the thing. Like, parents, we are a big part of this, but we're usually kept in the dark, because there's no way the coach can explain to us what they're coaching or they're teaching our kids, or how they're working individually with each one of them, and that doesn't allow us as parents to support our kids' development. Even the food, even something like, hey, get some rest because whatever. Oh, your training was so hard today and demanding, so I'm gonna try to support you in this other way. So it's an ecosystem full of challenges that have a lot to do with the lack of visibility. For the coaches, for the players, understanding the metrics, for the parents to take some action and try to support. So there's a lot, and we're fixing all of that one step at a time.
This might link into some of what you just said, but I think kind of another trend or change in the modern game, even at the highest level, is that I feel like football's getting younger, in the sense like, not all, but a lot of the top players in the Premier League are probably 23 and under right now. Players are making their debut at 19 and becoming regular starters. Whereas, 10, 15 years ago, 27, 28 was maybe the prime age. But I feel like that's maybe got younger in the eyes of clubs. What are your thoughts on that, I guess? And also, what changes will it make in the landscape of scouting?
It's my favorite subject to speak about, because it's very true. And it's important to understand that football is not getting younger because someone woke up one day and decided that we're going to recruit younger players and because they're better. It's because for 99% of clubs, the best players the players that they really want at the age that they really want them have become way too expensive. And something happened in, I think it was 2017. There's a player called Neymar.
Never heard of him. Just kidding.
He's Mexican. I know. Another one.
There's a player called Neymar who changed the football industry forever without knowing it. It's not just him, of course, also the FC Barcelona and PSG who were involved in that transfer. But that transfer for more than 220 million euros changed the transfer market forever. Since that transfer happened, every player's value increased on the market just because everyone just increased, like just by 20 million almost. Like it was insane, right? All of a sudden you see players that you thought he's maybe like a 10 million pound player go for 50. I mean, when I say this, you have a lot of examples, right? And it's like, he's never a 100 million pound player. Well, in today's market, he is, which means that for most clubs, as soon as a good young player starts playing regularly in the first team, he's going to be more than 7, 8, 9, 10 million pounds, which means that he's out of most clubs' reach, because most clubs cannot pay more than 5, 6, 7 million for a player, right, in a transfer. So the whole industry turned to, okay, how can we find good players cheaper? Well, we can find them when they're younger, before they peak, before we are sure that they are ready for the top level. So we'll take a little bit more risk. So everyone started to look just a couple of years younger. So the clubs at the top, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, all of those immense clubs, instead of taking players at 28, they would take them at 26, which means that the club that are selling to Real Madrid, instead of, they have to, in the past, they would take players at 24, develop them for 2 years at 26, sell them. Now they have to take the player at 22, play him for 2 years, and then sell him. And the club that is selling to that club before, they also have to start. So that's how it kind of boiled down. And as a result of this, I've been in meetings with sporting directors, head of scouting in clubs that have showed me their system and told me, we are not looking at players that are over the age of 24 years old. Huge clubs that are playing Champions League, you wouldn't believe it. 24 years old or more, you're out of our system.
Wow.
So what does it mean? It means that you need to know the player when he's 16, right? If you're going to recruit him at 22. And it means clubs that are going to be at the first step of the pyramid, they have to promote players as young as they can. And some clubs have built their whole business model on this, just giving debuts to players, giving debuts to young players, because they know the moment they start playing them, they'll be £1 million players. And that's where the industry is he's going right now.
So at 41, I have no chances
You have
anymore?
no chance. You have no chance, my friend.
Okay.
You have no chance.
Just,
To be honest, you have no chance as an average player now to go to a top club if you're 25.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
You kill all my hope.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, man.
I guess that kind of underscores why video and data is so important, because you have to catch them now earlier.
Yes.
And even from a club's point of view, but also a player's point of view, their windows may be a bit shorter now. Like you just said, 25 and over, the big deal might be gone, which is crazy to think about.
No, it's true. And the younger you take, no one here and no one has ever been able to predict if a 17-year-old is going to have a career or not. Like no one can do that. There's nothing that has been developed to predict that. It's instinct, there's things you see, but there's been top players. I don't know, the first one that comes to mind is Hashim Mastour, who was in like a top talent at AC Milan at 16, 17. He's having a career in the lower divisions, but he never had the career that we thought he would have. So no one can predict anything. And there's players that at 17 you would never have thought that Eberechi Eze, no one would have bet a euro on him that he would be a mega star at his age now when he was 17. So you can't predict. But what you can try to do as a football club is lower your risk. Lower the risk that you're taking. Lower your gamble, make it less of a gamble. And everything from video, statistics, and the amount of games that you can watch of a player to be sure can then lower that risk. So the risk management that was impossible to do in the past is now possible today.
Yeah, so, I mean, the industry is changing. We're changing the industry. And simply put, no footage, no future. That's what it is right now. That's a simple truth. And then when we talk about data, we usually think about game statistics and your performance statistics. But there's also another trend, behavioral data. And I was talking about this before. Who are you? You know, what's your story? How do you behave? What's your attitude? What do you look like? What type of player? What type of person are you? Not just what type of player are you? Like what's your profile as a person? Do you fit our organization? So it's moving over there. Like, is your family supportive? Like how is it like at your house, home? Like do you need some different types of support where it's a psychology one, or like that's very relevant, and that's it's not something new anymore. It's already here, and there are other things happening in the industry. Video, we all have a camera now, right? Of course, there are specialized cameras, and at some point, those smart cameras for football and for other sports, they're getting commoditized. So we're seeing it more and more and more. The technology, this happens with everything, right? Technology starts to be more accessible and more accessible. And then with the AI thing, you know, the technology is getting better for automated analysis, and eventually it's gonna be more affordable and more affordable. So that's something we see happening. Right now, yes, the top of the pyramids is the one that is getting access to all of these video and data and this and that, but eventually it's going down. And we understand that it's a journey that we need to go through, but that's part of the vision, is to give everyone the opportunity to get discovered, like to make everyone visible with video, with stats, with behavioral data, to make sure that everyone is entertained and that everyone connects. So yes, football is getting younger, but not just in the scouting perspective. Kids, you know, start to develop this sense of belonging way earlier now because they're digital. So the moment they turn 11 or 12, they already want to be in social media if they're not. And if I ask you, like, if you want to belong to the football community, where do you go? Where do you go? Regardless of where you're located, where do you go? You're going to go to eyeball. That's what's going to happen. So it's not just video, data. It's this sense of belonging as well, because you need support to get better and to enjoy the sport way more. If you thought that was not possible, we're just making it possible.
That's class. That leads me perfectly into kind of what I wanted to ask next. We've touched on how it affects different clubs, players, parents. I'm wondering from like your guys' point of view, in the long term, who do you think this is going to make the most difference for? Is it clubs? Is it players? Like, what do you hope for, I guess?
What I hope for and what I also believe the answer is players. 1,000%. 1,000%. That was, when we solved this problem, we also solved it for the professional clubs, but we for sure tried to solve it for the players, because there's good players everywhere. And if you were dependent as a player of who's coming to watch you on your day, your chances are inexistent, right? So in the future and in the long run and in many years when we look back at what we are doing now, players, absolutely. There's going to be players who will be able to look back and someone is going to tell them the story of, without this, you would have never existed in this industry. And that's what we really hope.
Yeah, I mean, precisely that. Everything we've done, everything we're doing is thinking about the player, has been thinking about the player, putting the players in the center. So the only thing I will add is, yes, the ones that are going to get the most benefit out of all of this are the players and their families, because it is what it is, right? If you're a 12-year-old, if you're an 11-year-old, you need some support. The players also exist because there are others surrounding them and helping them get into the sport. And it differs from where you are. Like, for example, in regions such as Latin America, even if in the US, like the only way you can get to a football pitch is if someone drives you. Or if you have some kind of financial support, like the US is a pay-to-play system. There's no way you can practice a sport if you're not spending money. It's different, and we can speak about that. But if you want to go to a game on a specific weekend, you need to drive for 90 minutes or even 2 hours just to play. And in other regions, it might just be public transportation. I remember when I was a kid, there was this final we were playing, and then our center back didn't show up because his parents didn't have money to pay for public transportation. So the dad took him to work on that Sunday, and we lost. So how do we support this to get better? What do we do for the community to make this better? Yes, provide visibility, opportunity, all that is our mantra. But how do we get people to enjoy this? How do we bring brands into the play, right? How do we make it more and more accessible? Because that's also the beauty of the sport, and that's also why it's so popular. You just need, 4 plastic bottles or maybe 2 big rocks, right? And something to kick, and you're playing in the street. That's what it is. So that has to be translated into technology access, into video access, data access, community access, communication tools access. That's what football is about, and that's what IBL is about.
For sure. Hypothetically then, what does your kind of dream transfer look like via IBL? Like, where's the player from? Where have they gone? What's their ceiling?
I think it's already happened. I can tell you about it. But for me, when we started it, and still now, like the dream transfer, and it keeps happening, it's the player who is going to a club, and we know, and he knows, and the club knows, and everyone knows that transfer would have never happened without IBL existing somewhere, because the player would have not been filmed, or the game would have not been filmed, so the player would have not been filmed, and the club watching the game would have never been able to watch it because that video did not exist. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's the dream transfer, and this is not a huge transfer, but it's a very good story. There's a club in the MLS called Charlotte FC, who have existed for not many years. I think they were founded in 2020 or 2022, like very recent club. They're using IBL to find players in West Africa. A few years ago there was an agent who would tip the player to them and said, there's this player in Ivory Coast in an academy called San Pedro that you should watch. In the past, they would have gone, okay, mate, but like, what are we going to do about this? Like, we're not going to travel from the US to West Africa to watch a player we don't know about. So do you have footage? And he would have gone, well, of course not. It's Ivory Coast, there's no footage. And that would have been it. What happened is they said, okay, no problem. They opened eyeball, boom, they went on, they watched the player. Hassan Ouedraogo is his name, left-footed center-back. And they watched 5 full games of him, I know. They recruited the player. And he went from his village in Ivory Coast straight to the US on a professional contract. And when I visited them in September 2024, they told me that with the money of he had like a small sign-on bonus, he managed to buy a house for his family to take them off the street because they were living in nightmare conditions. That's it. It's not a huge transfer, but it's a transfer that has changed a life. And those transfers keep happening. There are players from those, small neighborhoods in France and Spain that are going to clubs abroad that had no eyes on that country. And especially, I think the impact Eyeball is having in West Africa is insane. There's players transferring every month. We hear about stories, and we are really embedded. It's difficult to speak about one transfer because we're really embedded in, there's not one transfer out of those countries that does not happen via Eyeball nowadays because it's in the workflows. That's the new normal. But if you ask me, the dream transfer is a player who would not have had that opportunity before.
For me, that answering that question is very easy, and it's a bit selfish. I want to see my daughter getting discovered through, Eyeball. If she says she wants to become a professional footballer, I don't know whether that's true or not. I know she loves the game. She's 12. So yes, when I joined the company, I was like, I'm doing this for the sport because I love it, but I'm also a bit selfish. I'm also doing it for my kids and the kids of my friends that I really want them to have an opportunity if they're really, and that could be discovered by the women's, team for Charlotte FC or maybe just a college within the country. Like, it doesn't matter. It's just having that opportunity and having that chance to be recognized and to do something more. That's what I want to see.
It's amazing. I think both you guys kind of mentioned the US in the last question. I feel like the US has had a lot more investment in soccer in terms of resources and, more people are watching it every year. What are some differences, or even just how does the structure in the US work?
Let's talk about the differences first. And one is pretty obvious. They call football a sport that is not played with the feet,
Yeah.
which is crazy. So they call soccer. So I tried to switch between one word and the other one. But one thing that I promise is that with Eyeball, soccer will never be the same. Now, it's crazy to see that in a country such as the United States, players don't just play to get scouted. They pay to get scouted because they work under this pay-to-play system. If you don't pay, you don't play. It's simple as that. It's a business, and it has its pros and cons. Americans make everything or turn everything into business, and that's very respectable. But at some point, it also hurts the sport in these regards. And it's probably the only place in the world, and I might be wrong with this, where players are like a startup and parents are the investors. So they're all pouring money into their kids' sport with the hope of getting some kind of return out of their investment. And that's usually a scholarship. So in the same way, players need to understand how the football business industry works to have a better chance to get scouted and maybe play for a professional club, regardless of the level. Kids in America also need to understand how this whole system works because it's different. And there are lots of differences in it. But there's one thing that doesn't change. Talent is everywhere. And visibility means opportunity. You don't have video, you have no chances. you have more data, you can tell a story. If you don't understand data, you need to get some digestible data so that it's actionable for you. You need your coach's support, you need your parents' support, you need everyone's support. So it's coming, it's changing. We're also giving, right now, if you're a player and you want to get scouted, you have to do a lot of heavy lifting. You have to, you see a lot of cameras already in the field. I remember the first time I was ever at this huge complex in LA, maybe, I don't know, 30-something pitches, fields in the same place. I got tired just from walking to field A to field 32, trying to talk to parents and other stuff. And there were different fields, maybe 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds were playing, and there were 3 cameras in the field. And I was like, wow. So because they're investing on trying to get their kids discovered or scouted, it involves, they're also way more mature in terms of technology adoption. But they still lack this very important layer that it's not just the video, it's not just isolated data, it's not just about being visible, it's about who is watching. And that's where the scouting part also plays a big role here.
I think just to close then, I guess, is there any more success stories that might inspire anybody watching? And then also aspiring players that are tuned in, how can they get involved?
There are. I mean, like I said, it's, Eyeball is directly or indirectly involved in most transfers of youth football players in the world right now. But there's a few names that come to mind. There's one who's probably my favorite kind of Eyeball player since we started. It's a player called Jessim Yassine. He's a French-Moroccan, born in France. 2005, left-footed player. And I remember he plays in Dunkerque right now, which is in the second best division in France. They were in the quarterfinals, I think, of the French Cup this year. Had a good season. And I remember 4 years ago, myself and Emile, we went to a small club called Istres. Istres is also where people might recognize Istres because Naby Keita played there when he came to France for the first time. And we were making a partnership with this club Istres, which is in the Marseille region, in the suburbs of Marseille, to get them on as Eyeball partners, so give them the camera so that their games could be filmed, because it's a really good youth club. And we were watching training, and there was this kid. He was so small, so skinny. He had like this dyed blonde hair, left-footed, and he was insane. He was so quick, technically so gifted. And I grabbed the coach. I was like, "Who's this kid?" And he said, "Oh, it's the famous Jessim." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, he's very famous in the area. Everyone knows him. He's been on trial at maybe like every single club in France, but everyone keeps rejecting him because of his size. He's tiny, like really, really small and skinny, like legs like this." And when I saw him, I was like, "This is Riyad Mahrez. Like, it's the same player." And he kept, he was telling me he's been on all these trials. It's no all the time. So now he plays here. Istres is an amateur club, no contract. He said, "Hopefully, thanks to your platform, he'll be discovered." And I kept like just watching his games once in a while just to follow what he was doing, and he just kept not being signed. And then he transferred to another club called Marignan-Gignac, also in the Marseille region, at under 19, so still playing amateur, under 19 level, and playing in the best league under 19, but still amateur. And he killed it. Like he had an average rating on Eyeball above 8.5, which is unheard of. And at some point, there was a scout who was working in Clermont. Clermont were using Eyeball, went to Dunkerque and signed him straight away. And he signed, I remember, in December 2023 on an amateur contract. And a month later, like in January, he made his debut with the first team. And I was like, how is this possible? And there was a part of me who said, I knew it. Like this, he just needed an opportunity. And since that moment, he, of course, got a new contract, and he's been playing first team regularly ever since, under 20 Morocco national team, value on transfermarket of more than 1.5 million euros. And I've been speaking to a lot of much bigger clubs in Europe who are following him very closely. So that's a fantastic story. And those are typically the stories that I love. I love the stories of players that were playing in a small club at a poor level, and that within a season or less go and play first team. There's a boy called Noam Kamara, who just started playing first team with PSG now. PSG, Champions League finalists. 2007, he was playing in a really small club called US Torcy just a year ago, amateur. US Torcy has also been the feeder club of Magnus Akliush, Paul Pogba, Luka Gourna-Douat, Randal Colomwani. It's an insane club. It's every year there's like 10 to 12 players that sign to bigger clubs, and he was there. And now he plays first team with PSG, and he's maybe going to be on the bench for the final against Inter. Insane. There's another player that I really like. He's called Silver Eze. So he's got the same last name as Eberechi Eze, not the same family. And he was in an eyeball partner club in England called Accrington Stanley.
Yep.
That I'm sure you know.
Yeah, sure.
And he signed to Blackburn. He signed for Blackburn. Blackburn took him, and he's not even signed his scholar yet. He's 2008. Because he's half Italian, he's got an Italian passport. He's got like big clubs in Italy that are on him already. He's been there 6 months. That's a rising baller for sure. And another one that I have in mind is a player called Malik Yalkouye. You probably heard of him. 2005 left-footed midfielder from Ivory Coast. So he's got a crazy story as well. He came from an eyeball partner academy in Ivory Coast, the bigger one in Ivory Coast called ASEC Mimosa. You know, Yaya Toure, Kolo Toure, Gervinho, all of those boys come from that academy, ASEC Mimosa. Look it up, it's fantastic. He was signed by a Swedish club called IFK Göteborg in like January 2024. He signed, so he played there. He made 11 appearances, I think. And then he was recruited by Brighton for 7 million euros. Brighton have loaned him out last season, so the season that just finished, to Sturm Graz in Austria. And he played like Champions League, like, I don't know, 10 appearances in the Champions League this season. And now he's probably going to go back to Brighton or back on loan, I don't know. But that's insane. Like within 6 months, being like playing a small academy in Ivory Coast to a 7 million euro transfer and playing Champions League, insane. And those stories really excite me because I'm like, well, how many more are there that are playing amateur football in a really small academy that could have the level of playing European football? That's really attractive to me, and it takes so much. I think the step between those players playing where they are now and playing on the bigger scene, like they have to put in the work, yes, but the clubs that are watching those players need the courage to sign them and just play them. And some people in professional football clubs don't have that courage because they're risking their jobs, right? If you take a player and you play him and he's not good, why did you take this young player? You should have taken an older player, more, you know, why did you put such a young player on the big scene? But if you do, as a sporting director, as a scout or whatever, then you can be rewarded with that story as well, and that can follow you for life. Or a coach, right? They follow you for life. So I'm really passionate about those transfers, but there's thousands, really.
So whenever we do these interviews, we usually ask our guests to present a question for our audience. I'm just wondering, Fernando, to close, whether you have anything for us.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I have something better. I have an invitation. So far, you've heard, you know, a lot of things, and these stories are not just amazing, they're inspiring. And we've been focusing on the top 1% because that was the logic thing to do as a business. But that's changing. We're opening this up for everyone. We know talent is everywhere, and we're gonna give everyone the visibility they deserve. We're gonna give everyone the chance to enjoy video, data, understand the data, and action on top of that data. So if you're a coach, we're gonna be your best friends because you're not gonna have to spend any additional time to what you're already spending, but you're gonna be able to teach way better and to develop your players way better and to communicate with them in a very efficient way. And parents will have visibility. So if you're a parent, you don't have to guess anymore. You'll know what's going on. and coaches won't have to do anything extra to make that happen. And if you are a player, you're gonna get the spotlight now. You have that opportunity. You'll understand what's going on. You're gonna know what to do. You're gonna have better support by your coach, by your parents, by the institution you're playing for. You're gonna have more opportunity. So what's the invitation? Go get on IPO. Sign up for the waiting list, because even if we want to open this to the whole world, we have to do it in a controlled way. So we're gonna roll it out in a very controlled way. Everyone's gonna have the chance to get a piece of the service for free, and a lot of things for free always. So we're changing the industry with what's coming. We're gonna be the destination for everyone that is related to the industry, one step at a time. So go to IBO, go get on IBO, sign up. You won't even have to ask your institution to do that. You're gonna be able to take action yourself, get together as a team, get together as a group, create the team, and then you'll enjoy the rest. So it's up to you now. Look for the opportunity as a player, get on IBO.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys, coming all this way. I think what you're doing is game-changing, disruptive in the most positive way, and I can't wait to see the next star come through.